I was just jogging in the park, until she told me to stop following her, and then let me stay. The story opens with our narrator, a 25-year-old man, jogging through a quiet city park in the late afternoon. The sun is low, casting a warm golden glow that filters through the trees, painting long, shifting shadows across the winding path. The air is cool but carries the lingering warmth of the day, scented faintly with grass and fallen leaves. He notices how the light catches on the water of the small pond at the park's center, glittering like scattered gold, but it's not the scenery that holds his attention. His eyes are drawn to a woman sitting on a wooden bench under a maple tree. She appears to be in her early 40s, exuding quiet confidence and grace. Her posture is relaxed, one leg crossed over the other, a book held loosely in her hands. She's dressed simply yet elegantly, a flowing blouse paired with tailored pants, her hair cascading in gentle waves over her shoulders. A slight breeze lifts a strand of hair, and she tucks it behind her ear with a motion that seems almost unconscious, yet striking. The narrator's chest tightens slightly, not from fear, but from an unexpected sense of curiosity and admiration. He slows his jog, instinctively wanting to see her more clearly. She glances up, her eyes meeting his for a fleeting moment. There's a sharpness there, a caution that makes him pause. Her lips part slightly as she rises, and in a voice that is calm but firm, she says, "Stop following me." Her words are not angry, but they carry authority and self-assurance. The narrator freezes mid-step, the tension in the air almost tangible. His pulse quickens, not from guilt, but from fascination. There's something in the way she stands, the subtle tilt of her head, the way her hands rest lightly on the book she carries, that draws him in. He feels a magnetic pull, as if the universe has arranged this exact moment for him to notice her. He debates whether to step away, respecting her command, yet something inside urges him to linger. From a safe distance, he watches her walk along the path, her pace unhurried yet purposeful, the hem of her skirt brushing against her legs, the sunlight glinting on the faint rings adorning her fingers. The air carries a soft fragrance, floral, warm, subtly inviting. He takes a deep breath, noting the small details, the gentle sway of her shoulders, the quiet confidence in her stride, the way she pauses to look at a flower patch, fingers grazing the petals ever so lightly. There's vulnerability beneath her poise, a quiet human warmth that stirs an unexpected empathy within him. By the time she disappears behind a bend in the park, the narrator realizes he's standing still, heart racing, feeling an unfamiliar longing. A mix of curiosity and admiration lingers, as if the brief encounter has shifted something in him. The seed of connection has been planted, not through words or gestures, but through presence, aura, and a fleeting, intense awareness of another human being. The scene ends with him standing alone on the path, the sun dipping lower, casting long shadows, and a single thought occupying his mind: I need to see her again. The following afternoon, the narrator finds himself returning to the park, as if drawn by some invisible thread. The sun is warm but softer now, filtering through the trees in a honeyed glow. He moves slowly, deliberately, not jogging this time, but strolling, trying not to seem intrusive. His mind replays the encounter from yesterday, the firmness of her voice, the curve of her smile as she turned away. As he approaches the familiar bench, he sees her again. She is seated in the same spot, book in hand, but her posture is less guarded than before. She notices him lingering nearby and pauses, tilting her head slightly, her eyes meeting his across the distance. For a moment, the world seems to shrink around them, the rustle of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, even the faint scent of wet grass from last night's rain fades into the background. Then, surprisingly, she gestures toward the empty space on the bench beside her. "Wait! I suppose you can sit." The words are soft, almost hesitant, carrying a subtle warmth that surprises him. His pulse quickens, not from anxiety, but from the sudden shift in energy. He approaches cautiously, aware of each step. The distance between them feels charged, each inch closing a gap not just in space but in emotional proximity. As he sits, careful to maintain respectful space, he notices the details. The way her skirt folds softly against the bench, the gentle rise and fall of her shoulders, the golden highlights in her hair catching the afternoon sun. The air carries a faint, floral fragrance, mingling with the earthy scent of the park. Their conversation starts lightly, tentative. She asks about his day, her voice carrying a curious undertone that suggests she is testing him, seeing if he is genuine. He stumbles over his words slightly, conscious of the way her eyes linger on his face, studying him without judgment. The nervous energy he feels is tempered by a growing fascination, a sense that he's being seen in a way he hasn't experienced before. Small gestures take on significance. When he reaches for his water bottle, their fingers brush briefly, a fleeting contact that sends an unexpected warmth through him. She does not pull away, her hand resting lightly on her lap, a subtle acknowledgement of connection. His attention is drawn to the tilt of her head, the curve of her lips as she listens, the softness in her eyes that hints at a vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. There is a quiet rhythm to their interaction, a gentle give and take that feels natural and unforced. He notices that, despite the initial warning, she has allowed him into her space, a small act of trust that does not go unnoticed. The tension that once kept them apart is slowly giving way to curiosity, subtle comfort, and a tentative bond forming in the silence between words. As they part ways later, the narrator walks away with a heightened awareness of her presence, the lingering warmth of her gaze following him. He feels a spark of hope, the beginnings of connection, and an undeniable pull to see her again. The park, once just a place of jogging and passing time, now feels like a stage for something quietly extraordinary, an emotional journey that has only just begun. A few days later, the narrator finds himself wandering the park again, the late afternoon sun casting long, dappled shadows across the winding paths. The air is cooler now, tinged with the earthy scent of wet leaves and distant flowers. He spots her near the small gazebo by the pond, flipping the pages of her book with quiet attention. Their eyes meet almost immediately, and this time, there is no admonishment in her gaze, just a subtle, measured curiosity. As he approaches, a soft drizzle begins, the rain gentle enough to create tiny ripples across the pond's surface. She glances up, eyes narrowing slightly against the drops, and then gestures toward the gazebo. "You can follow me, I guess," she says, a hint of playful caution in her tone. His heart flutters, not from fear, but from anticipation. Inside the gazebo, they stand close enough for their shoulders to brush lightly, a contact that sends an almost imperceptible warmth through him. The rain creates a rhythmic backdrop, pattering softly against the roof, and the smell of wet earth and leaves rises around them. He notices the subtle details, the curve of her neck as she tucks damp hair behind her ear, the quiet steadiness of her breathing, the way her eyes reflect the muted sunlight filtering through the raindrops. Their conversation drifts naturally. She shares a small, intimate memory from her life, a story of a childhood friend, a long-lost hope, or a lesson learned the hard way. He listens intently, drawn to the cadence of her voice, the slight inflection that betrays a trace of vulnerability beneath her composed demeanor. He shares a snippet of his own world, his voice quieter than usual, almost confessional, as if the gazebo and rain create a safe space for honesty. Physical cues enhance the emotional connection. At one point, he gestures toward the pond, and their fingers almost touch as they point simultaneously. The brush of skin is electric in its subtlety, a reminder of the unspoken tension growing between them. He notices the warmth radiating from her coat against his arm, the soft scent of her perfume mingling with the rain-soaked air. There's a quiet rhythm to their shared space, laughter laced with silence, words punctuated by lingering glances, and the gentle awareness of each other's presence. The age gap, which might have felt like a barrier in another context, fades into the background here, overshadowed by genuine connection and the thrill of mutual understanding. As the rain eases and the clouds begin to part, they step out of the gazebo together. Their proximity is natural, unforced, a gentle continuation of the closeness that has been quietly building. The narrator feels a surge of gratitude for this unplanned intimacy, for the chance to glimpse her vulnerability and to be trusted with his own. The scene closes with them pausing on the path, both reluctant to break the moment. She looks at him, eyes softened, a faint smile tugging at her lips. He feels the first stirrings of something deeper, A recognition that this connection, unexpected and tentative, is beginning to transform into something that matters. And though either of them speaks the words aloud, both know that this shared moment has changed the way they see each other forever. A week has passed, and the park now carries a familiar rhythm for the narrator, a mix of early evening stillness, birds settling for the night, and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by a soft breeze. He arrives just as the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in muted shades of pink and amber. He finds her sitting on the bench beneath the oak tree, her silhouette framed by the fading light. She's reading again, but there's a quiet tension in the way her shoulders are slightly hunched, the curve of her back hinting at something unspoken. He approaches, and she notices him immediately. Instead of the sharp command from their first encounter, she offers a small, almost imperceptible nod. "It's late," she says, her voice calm but carrying a weight of honesty. He takes a seat beside her, careful to keep a respectful distance, yet the space between them feels charged with anticipation. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint aroma of her perfume, a warm, subtle mix that seems to anchor him to the moment. The distant sound of children's laughter fades into the background, leaving just the two of them and the quiet hum of the park settling into evening. She begins to speak, tentatively at first, revealing a fear she rarely shares with anyone, the sense of loneliness that sometimes creeps in, the quiet anxiety that she must always appear strong. Her voice softens as she looks down at her hands, twisting a ring absent-mindedly. The narrator listens, struck by the contrast between her poised exterior and the vulnerability she now allows him to witness. Encouraged by her openness, he shares a piece of his own life, the uncertainty he feels in navigating the world, the desire for a connection that feels real and unguarded. His words are careful, sincere, carrying the weight of a man who has rarely shared so much with someone he barely knows. Physical and sensory details enhance the intimacy. Her arm brushes against his when she shifts slightly, and the warmth from her presence seeps into him in a comforting, almost electric way. He notices the softness of her scarf against his hand as it drifts near him, the way the fading sunlight catches the glint in her eyes, and the rhythmic pattern of her breathing as she leans slightly forward, engaged in the conversation. The age difference hangs silently in the air, acknowledged without words. Both feel the pull of connection tempered by the knowledge of how unusual, perhaps even improbable, this bond could seem to the outside world. Yet the magnetic draw of mutual understanding and unspoken desire outweighs the hesitation. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the path, they sit together in a comfortable silence. Her gaze lingers on him for a moment longer than necessary, and he senses the shift, an unspoken acknowledgement that their lives, briefly intertwined in this shared evening, have begun to matter to each other in a way that neither expected. The scene closes with the narrator feeling a warmth he hasn't known before, the quiet intimacy of shared vulnerability leaving an indelible mark on both of them. For the first time, they sit side by side not as strangers, but as two people beginning to recognize the possibility of something deeper, an unspoken promise of connection, trust, and perhaps, the first flicker of love. It's a crisp afternoon, and the park feels quieter than usual. The soft crunch of fallen leaves underfoot mixes with the distant laughter of children and the gentle hum of the city beyond the trees. The narrator, walking along a familiar path, spots her near the park entrance. She is slightly bent over, struggling with a small package she's carrying. Her brow is furrowed, the corner of her lips pressed together in concentration. Without thinking, he hurries toward her, the rhythm of his footsteps matching the quickened beat of his heart. "Here, let me help you," he offers, reaching for the package. She hesitates for a moment, her eyes scanning him with a mixture of surprise and guarded curiosity, before nodding slightly. As their hands meet briefly on the package, a subtle warmth spreads through him. Her touch is light, almost fleeting, yet it carries a weight of trust and familiarity that sends a quiet thrill down his spine. He notices the texture of her gloves, the softness of her skin underneath, and the gentle pressure as their fingers brush. She doesn't pull away, allowing the contact to linger just long enough to be meaningful. They move toward a nearby bench to rest, sitting side by side. He places the package gently beside them, and for a moment, They just sit in companionable silence, letting the sounds of the park envelop them, the rustling leaves, the distant bark of a dog, the faint hum of wine through the branches. The closeness feels natural, as if the universe has carved out this small, private space just for them. The conversation turns light at first, but soon drifts into deeper topics: dreams unfulfilled, past regrets, the little moments that have shaped who they are. She leans slightly toward him, her head tilting as she laughs at a story he shares, and for an instant, her hair brushes against his shoulder. The sensation is delicate yet electric, leaving a trace of warmth that lingers long after the movement ends. He senses her vulnerability in the quiet glances she gives him, the way she sometimes lets her hand rest loosely near his arm. Tentatively, she rests her head briefly on his shoulder, a gesture of trust that is tender without being intimate in a sexual sense. He feels the weight of her presence, the steady warmth radiating from her body, and the subtle reassurance that she is allowing him to be close without fear. Sensory details heighten the intimacy, the faint scent of her perfume blending with the crisp air, the gentle pressure of her shoulder against his, the soft brush of fabric as they shift slightly on the bench. Each movement and touch is small, deliberate, and charged with the kind of quiet emotional tension that neither of them can yet name. As they stand to leave, the narrator notices her lingering glance, a subtle acknowledgement of the growing bond between them. The package may have been small, but the shared moment, so effortless, so tender, cements a connection deeper than words can express. In this simple act of helping, both realize that their lives are beginning to intertwine in ways that feel both natural and inevitable. The scene closes with them walking slowly down the park path together, shoulders occasionally brushing, hearts quietly aware of the gentle gravity pulling them closer with each passing moment. The park is quiet in the late evening, bathed in the muted glow of street lamps and the soft silver of a rising moon. The leaves whisper in a gentle breeze, carrying the crisp scent of autumn and the faint aroma of damp earth. The narrator walks toward the old oak tree, a place that has become their unspoken meeting spot. Tonight, however, there's a heaviness in the air, a tension he can feel even before he sees her. She is sitting on the bench, hands folded in her lap, her posture slightly more rigid than usual. The light catches the strands of her hair, revealing the faint highlights and the softness of her skin. As he approaches, she looks up, her eyes reflecting both warmth and an unspoken worry. There's a pause before she speaks, the silence between them stretching, charged with emotion. "I've been thinking," she begins softly, her voice carrying a hint of hesitation. "About us. About how close we've become." She pauses, twisting a ring on her finger absent-mindedly. "I can't ignore the age difference, or what others might think." The narrator feels a tightening in his chest, a mixture of longing and fear, but he responds with honesty. He tells her how he feels, how he admires her confidence, her warmth, and the way she makes him feel seen in a way no one else has. He speaks carefully, making sure his words carry sincerity without pressure. As they talk, their physical proximity is intimate yet respectful. Her shoulder brushes his as she shifts on the bench, and he does not move away. The faint warmth radiating from her body feels grounding, comforting, and stirring all at once. He notices the subtle cues of her vulnerability, the slight tremor in her hands, the soft catch in her voice, the way her gaze occasionally flickers toward him before returning to the space ahead. The emotional tension rises as they confront the reality of their growing connection. She admits fear, not of him, but of judgment, of the uncertainty that accompanies relationships that defy conventional expectations. He listens, absorbing every word, every pause, every tremor in her voice, and reassures her that his feelings are genuine and unwavering. Sensory details enrich the moment, the cool evening air brushing against their faces, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the crispness of autumn, the rustle of leaves as a gentle wind passes through. Each touch, each glance, carries weight, the silent communication of hearts beginning to navigate both desire and caution. By the end of the conversation, a fragile but unspoken understanding forms between them. Their bond is no longer casual or tentative. It carries both the thrill of attraction and the gravity of emotional honesty. She offers a slow, tentative smile, a quiet acknowledgement of the trust they've built and the feelings they cannot yet name aloud. They leave the bench side by side, walking slowly through the park, shoulders occasionally brushing. The night is calm, and the world beyond the trees fades away. For the narrator, this evening marks a turning point, a moment of emotional clarity and courage, where both recognize the depth of their connection and the possibility of something enduring, despite the obstacles that lie ahead. The park is wrapped in the soft glow of early morning, mist curling gently around the base of the trees, dew sparkling like tiny diamonds on the grass. The air is crisp but carries a comforting freshness, the kind that makes every breath feel revitalizing. The narrator walks along the familiar path, heart steady yet expectant, aware that today might be different. He spots her ahead, leaning casually against the bench under the old oak tree. Her hair catches the first rays of sunlight, the highlights glowing like liquid gold, and the faint warmth of her presence feels magnetic even from a distance. She glances up, her eyes meeting his, and for the first time, there is no hesitation, just a serene acknowledgement of the connection they've been nurturing. They walk toward each other, slower than necessary, letting the silence speak for them. Each step carries weight, the quiet acceptance of feelings long held, the comfort of familiarity, and the thrill of shared anticipation. When they reach the bench, she gestures for him to sit beside her. Their shoulders brush naturally, comfortably, and he notices the subtle warmth radiating from her body, a gentle reassurance of trust and closeness. The conversation is light but intimate, punctuated with laughter that drifts easily into comfortable pauses. They share observations about the park, the way sunlight filters through the leaves, the soft rustle of branches overhead, the occasional chirp of a bird welcoming the morning. Each detail becomes a shared experience, a quiet testament to the bond forming between them. Physical affection remains tender and respectful. She rests her hand lightly on his arm as she speaks, and he responds by adjusting slightly closer, the brush of her fingers against his skin sending a warm thrill through him. Their eyes meet often, glances lingering just long enough to convey what words cannot: trust, desire, and a quiet joy in being together. Sensory richness enhances the moment, the warmth of the rising sun on their faces, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the fresh morning air, the softness of the bench beneath them, and the rhythmic harmony of their breathing as they sit side by side. Every detail reinforces the sense of calm, the slow certainty that they belong in this moment together. As they watch the sun fully rise, illuminating the pond with a golden shimmer, neither speaks, yet the silence is filled with unspoken understanding. The age gap, once an unacknowledged worry, feels like a natural part of their story, no longer a barrier but a quiet thread weaving them together. The narrator reaches out gently, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. She smiles, leaning just slightly into the gesture, and the warmth of her cheek near his hand is grounding, peaceful, and deeply comforting. In that moment, everything feels exactly right: the slow burn of connection, the emotional intimacy, the shared vulnerability, all converging into a quiet, enduring love. The story closes with them sitting together on the bench, shoulders touching, hands occasionally brushing, hearts beating in unison with the rhythm of the park waking around them. The morning light washes over them, serene and golden, signaling not an ending, but a beginning, an unspoken promise of many mornings, many moments, and a bond that will continue to grow with patience, care, and quiet devotion.